Yo, what's up? Today, we're making a cyberpunk style track. Cyberpunk is a science fiction subgenre that combines futuristic advancements in technology, like cybernetics and AI, and juxtaposes it with a radical dystopian society. According to Bruce Sterling, an author that helped define the genre, cyberpunk can be described as a combination of low life and high tech. Some of the most well-known cyberpunk-themed media range from comics and movies like Judge Dredd, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and Blade Runner, creating many of the visual aesthetics of cyberpunk. But with the rise of cyberpunk-styled video games like Deus Ex, Hyperscape, Ghost Runner, and obviously Cyberpunk, the sound of cyberpunk has shifted into a mixture of genres, ranging from acid house, industrial, dark synth, and synthwave, creating a gritty and sinister sound to match their unforgiving world. I'm going to be taking a few notes out of my synthwave tutorial and talk about the use of analog. Analog synthesizers create this unique, warm, and fuzzy sound that sounds both futuristic and nostalgic at the same time. And almost all cyberpunk-style media leans on the use of synthesizers to create their soundtrack. Which totally makes sense. If you think about it, synthesizers are just cybernetically enhanced pianos. For my song, I wanted to use this old-sounding glitchy synth from FB3100. This is a free synth that's inspired by the real-life Korg PS3100. This will be the motif that I'll revisit later in the song. I added a few effects as well. I made a high-pass EQ to filter out lows, Super VHS to give it a vintage tape sound, Stereo Shaper to widen it, and an automation with Supermassive to create an ultra-wide reverb later in the song. This leads to the build-up and the drop section of the song. The main synth I'm using is more inspired by industrial music, utilizing heavy distortion and creating a harsh metallic sound with their synths. I'm using this preset from Harmless, aptly named Industrial. I used a few effects on this as well, using Soundgoodizer to amplify the sound and Destructor to add a little soft distortion. I also used a few EQs, filters, and reverbs and automated them to shape the sound in the build-up. I also wanted to layer the main synth with a more acid-sounding synth, so I used T-Force Alpha Plus and played the same melody. But I also made an automation on the cutoff filter so the sound changes throughout the song. It sounds like it's constantly moving and morphing as the song continues, and it also works as a build-up into the next section. I'm going to take some artistic liberties from the cyberpunk sound. When I was making this, I really liked the drop, but I wanted to add a more epic-sounding Synth B section. So I layered a few synths together and had them play that motif that I made earlier. I'm using an analog strings preset and flex to play the main melody. And then I layered the 80s keys preset from Harmless on top and played it as a top melody. And lastly, I used a saw preset and mini synth and played this quick arpeggio following the chord progression. This section gave the song a nice bright contrast from the darker beginning section. It makes me feel like I'm having an overhead view of my futuristic cyber city. I wanted to beef up the drop, so I added two basses to play alongside the main synth. One bass is a synth pluck bass from Citrus, and the other is a simple sub bass I made in 3X Oscillator. I made a cut at 80 Hz on the synth bass just so the sub bass has some more room to shine in the lower frequencies, but you could still hear the synth bass's warm textures. I also made another bass pattern just to follow the chords. The drums are fairly simple. They follow a 4-on-the-floor beat using a mixture of acoustic kicks, gated snares, and some simple hi-hats. Pretty much the same drum sounds that you would hear in any other 80s media. I also pre-recorded the drums and added an EQ filter so they sound like they're coming out of a radio for the beginning build-up. The final touches I made to the track were a few effects build-ups and some impact sounds, and that is it.